So, my move to LA was chaotic, crazy, not well planned in some aspects. It was a lot going on. So, firstly, I should start with my desire. So, I had the desire to move to LA for years, probably sometime after grad school. But it really came into motion while I was living in Austin and I was acting in community plays and in student short films. And I was like, if I'm really gonna do this, I need to move to LA. But I just didn't really know like how or what that looked like. And so one of the first steps I took was, I think my lease was ending in like June or May, something like that. And so I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna end up in LA. I don't know if I will, but I'm gonna move out. And so I moved out of my apartment and I put all of my stuff in storage. And a coworker of mine at the time, shout out to Fallon, had 2 extra rooms in her house. And another one of my coworkers was renting a room from her. So I knew she had one more room. So I moved out of my apartment, put my stuff in storage, and moved in there and was renting a room. And I didn't know how long that would go on. I think I was kind of under the impression like, I really, really love this apartment, but if I don't take the action to move now, I never will. And so I was like, I gotta let go of this apartment and try to go to LA. Also, this time I was like applying to jobs in LA. I remember I had like a interview with a research job at UCLA, and I was almost there, and then they didn't choose me. And I remember being so crushed. And then I was like, I'm just gonna get an agent and I'm just gonna go. And I remember I was emailing all these agents, and I had an agency reach out to me like, hey, can you come in on Tuesday for an interview? And I was like, crap, I live in Austin. So I can't. And so I missed out on that interview. So a friend had told me about this guy from London, and I ended up doing research about this guy, and I found out that he had a drama school in London. And it just so happened that the drama school was coming to LA, and it was starting in LA that year in 2018. I applied. And I was like, what's the worst that can happen? I still don't know how I'm gonna go to LA or what that means, or because I felt like I needed a reason. It either needed to be work or it needed to be acting, but something needed to be in motion for me to go, because I felt like it was just an idea, it was just a dream, and I felt like it wasn't actually going to happen. So I had to take, actionable steps to make it feel like it could happen. I applied for Identity School of Acting, and they asked me to come in for an audition. Funny story, I was actually like dog sitting for one of my coworkers at the time. I took a sick day from work. I left super early in the morning, went to LA, had the audition, got back on a plane, and came back at night and continued dog sitting. It was like literally the craziest day of my life. It was like such a whirlwind. I was just like in and out, in and out, in and out. And keep in mind, that was my first time ever in California when I came for that audition, and I was in California for a few hours. So then when I came back, so my position at the time, I was interim director of my department, and so I had interviewed for the actual director position. And I told myself, and I told God, I said, God, if I get this position, that means I'm supposed to stay. And if I don't get this position, it means I'm not supposed to stay. And that's fine. So literally in the same week, I found out that I didn't get the position and I had gotten into Identity. And I was like, okay, God, this is you. You want me to go to LA. So we got to figure out how to make this happen. I should also say at this time, I was seeing a therapist. I was going through like some personal things. And I was feeling like I was crazy a little bit to have this desire to go to LA, because it felt so foreign. It felt so unattainable. In addition to that, I started seeing my pastor at church. So I was very involved in my church in Austin at the time, and I just reached out to my pastor, and we used to just email back and forth. I haven't emailed him in a long time. I probably should. I wonder if that would be weird. And so I would meet with my therapist like once every few weeks, and then I would meet with my pastor like once a month. It was a lot going on, okay? It was a lot going on. And so I remember my therapist was very, very encouraging, and she would be like, you can do this. You're gonna be a superstar. You can do anything you put your mind to. She was incredible. And I remember my pastor, he was very logical, and I appreciated that. But I remember he asked me, because I was like trying to set in motion to move to LA like immediately. And he was like, what if you waited? What if you took the time to save and moved in, say, January? Or, give yourself 6 months, give yourself some time to really save and to really get yourself together so that you're better prepared to go. And in hindsight, he was right in a lot of ways, because that's one thing I did not do. I did not save for my move like I should have. However, I truly felt at the time that if I did not go, I would not go. Like, it felt like it needed to happen immediately to actually happen. And I felt like if I prolonged it and I waited till January, it would become February, and then it would become March. And I just felt like I was afraid that I wasn't actually going to do it. And so though his advice was sound, and I don't know what would have happened had I had waited. Maybe I would have moved. Maybe I would still be in Texas. Who knows? I'm not glad that I necessarily didn't listen to him, but things happened how they were supposed to happen. So I got into identity, and I think the first class was starting in September, and I still live in Austin. So what happened was I was working Monday through Friday. And so Friday, I flew over to LA, stayed in a hostel that weekend, and attended the first weekend of class. And then I flew back come Sunday, right after class, flew back to Austin. And I did that for about 3-4 weeks. Those were some of the most chaotic times in my life, because like the flights were expensive. And so I would have to sometimes take a mega bus to Houston, because flying out of Houston was a cheaper ticket. So I would be it was wild. So I would be leaving Friday right after work, or trying to get off a little early, take a mega bus straight to Houston, get on a flight from Houston either that late night or early in the morning, and fly to LA to make it just in time for class. Have class Saturday, have class Sunday, get on a flight back to Houston or back to Austin. If it was Houston, I had to take the mega bus back to Austin, get home just to be at work Monday morning. Like, it was so chaotic, and it's so crazy. And I talk about this now with like my close friends. I talk about it when I journal. I talk about it with my therapist. Like, younger me is an amazing person, because me today could not, let me rephrase that. Me today would not want to do all of that taking a bus from Austin to Houston, getting on a flight, coming back. Like, that's too much. It's too much. But I was really like doing it back then, and I was trying to save money. I was trying to travel as affordable as possible. And so that's what it took. But it was some wild times. I remember literally feeling like I was not okay, because everything just felt like chaos. And so everything on the inside just felt like chaos. And I still can't believe I did that. I'm not even gonna lie. I still cannot believe I did that. And then like the tickets were getting really expensive, and I was like, this is not sustainable. Like, I have to move to LA. Like, I cannot keep flying back and forth to Austin. Keep in mind, I still had no job. I didn't really have any money saved. And so I had no idea how I was gonna make this happen. Let me just say, one thing I do regret at that time is not taking the time to sell during that time between when I put all my stuff in storage and I was living with my coworker from, June to September. I should have taken the time to sell my things that were in storage, but I did not. So that is definitely something that I regret. But I just wasn't thinking about my things. I was just like, we're gonna figure it out when the time comes. Let me tell you, the time came and I had to figure it out. So I was going back and forth between Austin and LA. It wasn't sustainable. I couldn't afford it. And so I was like, I'm gonna go to work and I'm gonna let them know, like, I'm leaving. But I need a plan because I can't leave immediately because I get no money. So I went to work and I told them, like, hey guys, I've been going to LA the past few weekends and I want to move there. So how can we work this out that I can still work here and I can live there? Keep in mind, this is before COVID. This is before work from home was a thing. So what I was proposing was super new, something they had never done, something they would never be down with. Kind of funny now. And so they were like, here's what we're gonna do. Consider this, your 2 weeks notice. You can work from home for 2 weeks because we can't lose you because we haven't officially hired our new director. So you can work for 2 weeks from LA. You come back, you turn in all of your items, and then we part ways. And I was like, perfect. Because for me, what did that say? I had 2 weeks, so I had one more paycheck left. So I had about a month's worth of payments coming in. That's how I looked at it. And so that's what I did. They gave me a laptop, they gave me all the things I needed. I bought a one-way, packed as much as I could, bought a one-way, flew to LA. Funny story, while all this is going on, a friend that I had met while I was in acting school was like, hey, have you considered where you're gonna live when you move to LA? I hadn't considered anything. I was still trying to figure out my left from my right. And I was like, no, I hadn't really thought about it. I know it'll work out. I was very optimistic and naive and just all over the place at that time. And she was like, well, I know someone who needs a roommate. Do you want me to link you guys? And I was like, sure. I hadn't even thought about that. Sure. Where am I gonna live? That's a great point. Yes. And so she linked us, we talked on the phone, and this girl, she was so serious about finding an apartment. So I thank God because she did all of the apartment hunting. She looked for a place, she went to the places. I couldn't because I was still Austin, LA, I was all over the place. So she did all that and she found a place. So when I came back after the back and forth, when I came back on my one way, we went and looked at the place and it was fine, perfect, whatever, boom. We signed the lease and the guy said it wouldn't be ready for 2 weeks. So I was in LA with 2 bags, with nowhere to stay, not able to move into the apartment that I had signed a lease for. I remember I was at school and I was freaking out because I was like, where am I going to live for 2 weeks? Why didn't we figure this out, Deidre? So I asked this girl who went to my school, she was one of my classmates. I asked her, I said, hey, could I possibly come live with you, stay on your couch for 2 weeks? My apartment's gonna be ready in 2 weeks. I will never forget it. This girl was like, yeah, that's fine, but you have to pay me she was asking for $800 a week. And I could not afford it. I think that $800 a week, at least for me at that time, was way too much, No, even at this time, that's way too much. I literally could not afford it. I had just signed a lease. I just put down a deposit for this apartment that I was gonna live in. And I literally only had one more paycheck coming in. I had no way. And I was just like, I'm gonna stay on the street. This is great. And so I remember I was sitting there just really beside myself. And another one of my classmates, she was like, if anybody needs, she said something, something random, if anybody needs anything, let me know. And so I went up to her and I was like, hey, I don't have a lot of money, but I have nowhere to stay. Is it possible that I could stay on your couch for 2 weeks? And I promise you, I will pay you back. I promise you, I just need 2 weeks and I will be out of your hair. And thank God for her because she did. She let me stay on her couch for 2 weeks. She did not charge me. I ended up getting an air mattress and just kind of sharing her room with her. She had her bed, I had my air mattress, and I did that for 2 weeks. And then after those 2 weeks were up, baby, also, let me go back. So during those 2 weeks, I was applying to jobs like crazy. I was applying to yoga studios, I was applying to Starbucks, I was applying to everywhere because I didn't have a job. You know, I had a job, but it was ending, so I needed a job. Yeah, I was applying, couldn't really find anything, didn't really have a lot of money, trying to figure it out, whoop-de-whoop. I go back to Austin, and I have all of these things in my storage that I have not gotten rid of. And I remember I threw away so much stuff that still pains me today. So much stuff I don't remember too also. So I feel like, you know, we all have more than we need. And I definitely did. I had everything I needed and I threw a lot of that stuff away. I did sell some stuff and that was my saving grace. I sold my bed and I sold my couch. Oddly enough, I sold my bed to a family who had just moved from LA and was moving to Texas, and they left because they said LA was too expensive. And I was like, ooh, this is awkward. And then I sold my couch. I remember I sold my couch. It was the last thing I sold before I got on the road. I sold my couch for $200. And that was like the $200 that took me all the way back to LA. And so I remember I went to work. I gave them back everything. I collected my things. I got everything out of Fallon's, my coworker that I was staying with, who still had some of my stuff. I cleared out everything and I got on the road. And I remember when I got on the road, I started crying immediately, like heavy, like sobbing, like snotting, like cannot breathe for your life, crying. Like it was one of the hardest cries I've ever had in my life. And I had to like pull over and just like really finish it and then start the drive. And it took me 2 days to drive. The first day I just had to get through Texas because Texas is ginormous. I drove all the way through, got to New Mexico, stopped in New Mexico, drove straight to my apartment, which was now ready.
I did it.
Yeah, and I arrived on
I did it.
October 25th, 2018. So that is what I consider to be my date of officially moving. And that's my story, man. Crazy. But we here.